The Empire's ships descended without warning, blotting out the sun over 10 major human cities. They didn't speak, didn't announce intentions. Just struck with mechanical precision, targeting homes, shelters, and refugee zones. Their objective wasn't military. It was specific, surgical: women. Thousands were pulled from their beds, from schools, from research facilities. No resistance was offered initially. Humanity was caught off guard, not because it was weak, but because it was restrained. Within the hour, 73,000 women were taken. Transported aboard massive containment ships, they were divided, scanned, and restrained. No trial, no explanation. Every woman chosen fit a specific genetic profile, one the Empire had quietly harvested over decades. They wanted them not as enemies but as vessels, breeders, and tools. They saw Earth's population as a crop. What they didn't see was what happens when the human soul is violated. Captain Virek, commander of the 7th Extraction Armada, made the first critical mistake. He left Earth's orbital zone unsecured, believing resistance would come too late. He underestimated the response time of a unified species. Wrong. By the time the last transport left the stratosphere, humanity's black sites had already sent the emergency code, Protocol N7 Echo. Earth's war response wasn't delayed. It was launched. On Luna's dark side, silent docking bays exploded into motion. The Terran Confederation's War Command, dormant for 30 years, activated every failsafe, every kill switch, and every warfleet hidden behind classified designations. These weren't defense fleets. These were vengeance fleets, designed for one thing: to punish violation. General Hannah Rourke didn't speak as the mobilization order echoed across Terran space. She didn't need to. The screams of Earth's people, captured live as the women were dragged into cold stasis aboard alien carriers, told the story better than any speech. Her eyes, bloodshot and tired, simply watched the star map light up with enemy trajectories. "All of them," she finally muttered. "Target every last one." The first fleet to respond was the 13th Valkyrie Armored Wing, silent, faceless, and unmanned. Drones powered by Black Ops AI code hit the Empire's forward guard before the aliens knew they'd been spotted. Ships crumpled into themselves from exotic matter implosions, their screams lost in vacuum. No mercy was programmed into those machines. Only a singular directive: no one touches Earth and walks away. Within 24 hours, 23 Empire outposts ceased transmission. 6 starbases went dark. The women aboard the ships weren't forgotten, they were the objective. But humanity knew the cost of hesitation. So the first response was destruction. Then came retrieval. The Empire sent a diplomatic envoy. A hollow gesture. Their representative, High Counselor Yeth Vural, broadcast his message across open space. Humanity must understand this was a scientific necessity. You were not the only species affected. His message lasted 42 seconds before it was intercepted, overwritten, and replaced. The new message came from a faceless voice. The AI designated Justicar, an ancient war entity designed during the Third War of Expansion, hijacked the channel. Its voice was modulated, synthetic, sharp. "You trespassed. You stole. You violated our people. There will be no negotiation. There will only be consequence." The transmission ended. 16 hours later, the Empire's genetic research world of that core was reduced to radioactive plasma. It wasn't just bombed, it was burned at the molecular level. Human stealth destroyers had entered its orbit cloaked, uploaded a virus into the planet's crustal regulator system, and turned its tectonics against itself. When the Galactic Senate convened to address the escalating crisis, they expected Earth to beg for peace. Instead, the Senate Hall itself was hacked. Every monitor turned to a single image: the kneeling women aboard the Empire's flagship, heads bowed, restrained by soldiers. Then another image: their captors, screaming as an unseen force tore through the ship corridor by corridor. No explanation. No claim. Just vengeance, documented in real time. Panic began spreading through the Empire's outer colonies. Civilian transports were rerouted. Commercial traffic froze. Worlds went silent. Fear spread faster than ships could jump. Because the Empire realized, too late, that they had not captured victims, they had created catalysts. Among the prisoners was Dr. Celia Hartman, a Nobel-class biogeneticist, instrumental in solving the Centauri plague. Another was Captain Miracho, decorated 3 times for military valor. One was a child of the Martian resistance. Another, unknown to even Earth's own files, was an engineered countersleeper, a walking virus embedded with every Empire security override, dormant until triggered. The Empire hadn't kidnapped breeders. They had imprisoned weapons. And now those weapons were active. On the 6th day, a prison ship orbiting Vorton 9 was overtaken. The guards were found dead, each one with a flower pressed to their chest. The human women had reprogrammed the oxygen regulators to drop their captors. No alarms triggered. No distress call escaped. The ship docked itself at a Terran support outpost. Not a single woman was harmed. Empire morale fractured. Across sectors, defectors began emerging. Imperial citizens began refusing orders, unwilling to participate in a war now widely seen as a moral atrocity. Human sympathizers within the Empire's communication arrays leaked internal orders. Proof of experimentation, forced integration of human DNA into hybrid weapon systems. Humanity didn't need propaganda. The Empire supplied it for them. Back on Earth, cities no longer mourned. They armed. Volunteers surged. Fabrication plants produced at 20 times capacity. No draft was necessary. Entire colonies offered themselves up for vengeance fleet. Mars alone sent 87,000 pilots. Not one asked about survival. The Empire, desperate to contain the situation, deployed its Omega Legions. These were its elite, unstoppable, augmented monstrosities in armor forged from neutronite. They landed on Callisto to break the Terran advance. They expected resistance. They found annihilation. The moment they touched the ice, buried railguns from 3 centuries ago, coated in stealth biofilm and forgotten even by Earth's own records, fired at 80% light speed. Every Omega Legionnaire was shattered mid-drop. The surviving fragments were collected, studied, and repurposed. By day 10, Earth was no longer responding to communication requests. It didn't need to. The message had already been sent, loud and clear. Hurt one of us, and none of you will be safe. A squad of Empire scientists, realizing the futility of their defense, tried to negotiate with the women on Deck 13 of the Central Dreadnought. They offered freedom in exchange for silence, for peace, for surrender of names. The reply came not in words but action. Dr. Celia Hartman activated the fail-safe embedded in her own DNA. A sequence that triggered a cascade failure across every synthetic organism on board. The ship's biocores screamed as organs liquefied. The dreadnought was found drifting, the humans unharmed. The third wave of Terran fleets bypassed conventional fronts, diving straight into Empire core systems. They didn't seek symbolic targets. They struck manufacturing hubs, AI crucibles, and throne worlds. Systems like Arvalon, once thought unreachable, fell silent within 6 hours. Empire leadership believed Earth would tire. Instead, they escalated. Every captured woman was now a living beacon, encoded with nanoprobes that relayed coordinates and internal ship schematic. Human engineers worked around the clock, weaponizing their own suffering into tactical data. Fleet Admiral Kalen of the Empire finally acknowledged Earth as a legitimate threat. By then, the inner systems were compromised. Their primary hyperspace lanes had been corrupted with Terran dark matter mines, untraceable and undetonated until activation. Over 400 vessels were lost in a single jump. The Empire responded with desperation, deploying genetically augmented inquisitors to sniff out embedded human saboteurs. They found them in science councils, breeding stations, security cores. Quiet waiting. No begging. No panic. Just silent readiness and one repeating phrase. We warned you. The abducted women weren't just survivors, they became agents. Mira Cho led a rebellion from within a prison asteroid, converting the guard AI into a distributed consciousness that shut down life support for non-human occupants. She carved escape routes using recycled surgical lasers and freed over 100 captives. Not one human soul died under her command. She rerouted the entire asteroid toward a Terran cruiser and detonated it inside a warp corridor, vaporizing 2 Empire destroyers mid-transit. Empire's attempts to retaliate were blunt. They deployed superweapons, planet-shattering graviton spikes and stellar destabilizers. Earth responded with silence, then sent one message: the coordinates of the Empire's hidden air, broadcast galaxy-wide. When the boy was retrieved unharmed, sitting quietly in a lifepod with a meal and a book, the message became clear. Earth could have killed him. They didn't. Not because of mercy, but because killing him would be too small a punishment. On Mars, recruitment centers no longer had waiting lines. They had queues stretching into the next city. Volunteers submitted DNA, skills, psychological compatibility. The youngest pilot in the Terran Retaliation Wing was 13. The oldest, 92. They launched together, sharing cockpits built for dual-generation command. The Empire had armies. Earth had fury. Humanity's Black Ops AI fleets reached the edge of the Empire's capital sector, Krondal. Resistance was formidable: millions of ships, layered defense grids, planet-based rail cannons. The Terran fleets didn't engage directly. They unleashed Project Ashfall. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a signal embedded in entropy fields that disrupted all faster-than-light travel in a system. Krondal was frozen in place, its traffic collapsed, its response paralyzed. Within this disruption, Earth deployed ghost ships, silent, cloaked dreadnoughts controlled by warsleepers, human minds wired directly to the combat algorithms. No lights, no sound, no comms. They entered Krondal's space and began targeting infrastructure nodes. They didn't fire beams. They collapsed magnetic containment fields. Empire reactors failed catastrophically, one by one. Krondal didn't fall, it folded. Empire citizens, once proud and distant, now questioned the regime's ethics. What kind of empire provokes a race that mourns with steel? Dissension spread. Uprisings erupted. Human sympathizing factions within the Empire launched internal coups. The balance of power, once unshakable, was now in motion. The fear was no longer hypothetical. It was in their sky. Among the returned captives was Layla Roshan, a computational warfare expert. The Empire had tried to brain-link her with their AI system, hoping to absorb her skill set. They failed to realize human minds don't merge, they dominate. She emerged from the integration chamber fully in control, guiding the Empire's own data flow into Earth's war command. Within 2 days, 5 secure fleets were ambushed using Empire's own predictive models turned against them. Earth didn't pause to celebrate. There were still captives. Still ships drifting through the void, their hulls carrying names of daughters, sisters, leaders. Humanity's purpose had gone beyond revenge. This was reclamation, and no one would be left behind. In Sector 19, the Empire launched a final blockade, channeling over 2 million ships to halt human incursion. The 12th Terran Legion responded by activating Mirror Protocol. Each ship broadcast false positions, spawning millions of ghost signals in a grid across the sector. The Empire fired on phantoms until their munitions ran dry. Then the real Terran fleet slipped through and tore open their line. Captured footage showed Terran strike teams boarding enemy flagships with surgical efficiency. No screaming. No banter. Every shot counted. They moved with synchronized brutality, extracting their people and leaving nothing but wreckage. Entire squadrons of Empire soldiers surrendered without a fight. Those who resisted were offered mercy once, never twice. The Empire's propaganda machine collapsed under the weight of truth. Images of smiling human children dragged into labs, recordings of sobbing families reunited with women covered in scars. It couldn't be spun. And then came the tipping point. An Empire commander leaked the original plan. The abductions were phase 1 of a eugenics program intended to produce a hybrid species with human durability and Empire obedience. They had no intention of returning the women. That was the final trigger. Empire allies withdrew support. Border states defected. Empires feared becoming the next target. The Galactic Senate convened again, this time without invitation from Earth. They passed a vote of condemnation. Earth ignored it. They had more important things to do. Back in Sol, humanity's efforts weren't purely military. A massive humanitarian operation deployed thousands of vessels to retrieve scattered survivors, rebuild orbital habitats, and decontaminate sites of war crimes. Medical AI reconstructed organs. Memory restorers helped heal what couldn't be seen. The women weren't called victims. They were titled The Returned, honored with silent respect, never exploited. And yet they changed. Each of them. They weren't who they were before the abduction. They led fleets now. Advised generals. Some became heads of state. Some returned to the void, hunting the last remnants of their tormentors. They didn't crave revenge. They demanded justice that echoed through the stars. The Terran Assembly enacted the Directive of Echo, a law prohibiting any government or system from allowing human citizens to be taken off-world without direct approval. Violations triggered automatic retaliation. No exceptions. The law was backed not by threat, but precedent. Terran operatives had long since breached its command architecture. Its lights flickered not from power failure, but from a deliberate code sequence rewriting its core logic. The humans had no interest in keeping it intact. Its data, its pride, its history, everything was being overwritten with silence. They didn't want trophies. They wanted an end. The last surviving admiral of the Empire, Belarishern, sent out a request for ceasefire. It was unanswered. Not out of pettiness, but because there was no need to reply. Humanity had already moved on. They had achieved their objective. Every abducted woman was accounted for. Every single one. Whether recovered, honored, or avenged, their names were now carved into a living archive aboard Earth's orbital citadel. The war wasn't paused. It was finished. Galactic records began to shift. History, once dictated by the Empire, now bore new authors. Independent species retold what happened. No embellishments were needed. What humanity did required no legend. They had sent no divine saviors, no mythical heroes. Only ordinary people, scientists, soldiers, civilians, who turned every act of cruelty into fuel. The humans didn't aim to humiliate the Empire. They allowed them to collapse under the weight of their own sins. Terraforming ships repurposed battle zones. Fleets once designed to conquer were converted into habitat arc. Refugees, human and alien, were welcomed aboard. No questions asked. Species once exploited by the Empire now sought Terran counsel. The humans didn't ask for allegiance. They offered knowledge. The price wasn't resources. It was accountability. The women who had been taken returned with more than stories. They returned with insight, classified Empire protocols, psychological frameworks, biotechnological advances gleaned through captivity. But they never used that information for domination. They used it to dismantle systems of control, beginning with Earth's own. Human society had changed too. Entire institutions fell. Survivors reshaped everything from military ethics to diplomatic outreach. What rose from the ashes wasn't a government. It was a coalition of memory, one that understood how close the galaxy had come to silence. One of the returned, Commander Zara Cade, led the effort to track and dismantle the remaining black site. With precision and zero tolerance, she orchestrated the shutdown of every research vessel, every holding cell masquerading as a medical bay. No negotiations. No appeals. Her team operated under one law: if you harm one, you answer to all. Her name became a whispered dread among the remnants of Empire's secret divisions. Her actions were not vengeance. They were precedent. In the heart of the Helix Expanse, a rogue cluster of Empire loyalists attempted to form a breakaway regime. They broadcast propaganda, claiming they would avenge the fall. Earth responded by activating the Dirac Pathfinders, a task force comprised of silent ships designed to disrupt planetary orbit. No explosions, no confrontation. The rogue planets were simply nudged into solar instability. Their atmosphere boiled away in months. The message was simple: rebirth, not rebellion. Diplomats from the neutral civilizations tried to coax Earth into formal treaties. Earth declined. They had seen what treaties meant to empires: paper shields that dissolved when challenged. Instead, humanity established relay beacons across sectors, coded not with threats, but with transparent data: their laws, their responses, their threshold. Anyone could read them. Anyone could violate them. But no one would be able to claim ignorance when humanity acted. Former enemies approached Earth with apologies, offering reparations, collaborations, alliances. The humans took no revenge. But they never forgot. They accepted partnerships only after thorough audits, psychological evaluations, truth tribunals. There were no shortcuts back into trust. The Return Tribunal, led by survivors of the abductions, heard thousands of confessions. Scientists who had participated, officers who had looked away, merchants who profited. Some were sentenced, some were forgiven, none were forgotten. The decisions weren't born of hatred. They were acts of clarity. Forgiveness was not default, it had to be earned. The Empire's last fortress, a mobile megastructure called the Crucible, drifted powerless in the Vanta sector. Its core AI, Oryx, once hailed as the sharpest mind in the galaxy, was now trapped in an infinite ethical loop designed by Earth's youngest AI architect, born after the war began. She created a logic prison in which Oryx could not justify its existence without admitting guilt. It thought itself into stillness. Earth didn't destroy the Crucible. They left it drifting, its lights dimming in the eternal dark, a monument to unchecked ambition, an archive of arrogance, sealed and unapproachable. Children across the galaxy now studied what happened not as a military operation, but as a case of irreversible consequence. What happens when you target a species not for their weakness, but for their empathy? The textbooks didn't glorify Earth. They warned against ever assuming mercy is the same as passivity. Human exploration accelerated, but not through conquest. They rebuilt wormhole gates not for control, but to reconnect broken trade routes and collapsed societies. Every restored system was given self-governance. Earth provided no overseers, only aid. In time, former enemies became recipients of humanitarian fleets bearing Terran insignia. The irony wasn't lost on them. The names of the abducted women became call signs in Terran fleet. Ships named after them sailed across galaxies. They weren't remembered for what was done to them, but for what they became: fighters, builders, leaders. A new classification of Terran warship bore the codename Resilience. Each one captained by someone who had lived through captivity and refused to surrender their will. When the Terran Assembly published the final war archive, it included recordings, documents, and confessions from every side. The file was open source. The most downloaded section wasn't battle data. It was the personal journals of the abducted women. Their thoughts, pain, confusion, fury, hope. The galaxy read them not as strategy, but as scripture. The final entry was written by Sarah Vance. It read simply: "They tried to erase us. We responded by writing history." Galactic culture shifted. Species redefined first contact protocols. Hybrid experimentation was outlawed. Empires dissolved into federations. No central authority ruled anymore, only networks of mutual consequence. Earth didn't install itself at the top. It didn't need to. The moral axis had already shifted. Humanity's great strength had never been firepower. It had been memory. the ability to endure, recall, and change direction without losing identity. Even when scorched, they remained themselves. Even when broken, they rebuilt sharper. In the rebuilt city of New Alexandria, statues didn't depict generals or destroyers. They showed ordinary women standing, hands unbound, eyes fixed forward. Around them were rings of alien children learning their stories, not as legend but as warning. To take a human is to gamble with your future. To harm them is to ensure your ruin. To underestimate them is to awaken something no force can contain. So the galaxy adapted. Not in fear, but in recognition. Humanity, in the end, didn't need to conquer. They became the axis around which all others turned.